Fellow travelers, join us on a journey into dissonance, a sense-making sojourn through humanist nightmare fuel. If you are receiving this transmission, then you too are part of the resistance.
In today's stream, we discuss justice, or rather, the injustice that is woven into our justice system and many other institutional spaces. We also address the heavy weight of living in American society, which finds it offensive to consider all the context of the Black and Brown experience in an unbiased way. We discuss how that type of targeted pressure affects our Black communities. Let's listen in now.
It's very much about the concept of talking very directly about what is happening in the world around us. And, you know, by way of introduction, I mean, this is the work we do, right? So we are involved in a case at present. I, as a developmental and behavioral counselor who is working to help a young mother of 3, right?
Yeah.
One, an adult son, one a son in high school, one a son just in middle school. And this woman is desperate. This woman is lost. But this woman is also angry. This woman is furious with how she's been treated, how she's been subjugated, how she has been oppressed, how she has been counted out over and over and over and over again. You can jump in any time in terms of how this may be resonating with you. Well,
right? Like, who are you talking about again? I'm like, it's merging
right. Yeah. So tell me, I mean, you know this woman, we're talking about her anonymously because it's an ongoing case, and yet, you know, this is the work we're doing, and we're getting into today's idea of justice, injustice, the lack of justice, the void of justice, no justice, no peace. And it begins in this particular place. And it begins in, this conversation should just begin in this place of institutions, of courts and state attorneys and public defenders and law enforcement, and even the marketplace of the city that she lives in, which has individuals who are people who hold positions of privilege and power. And it's power, it's privilege, it's authority, and it's single mom, 3 kids versus, right? So like the showdown, right? So tell me how that feels. What is that idea of a single mom like in the showdown?
I think the idea of the single mom in the showdown, I don't know. The thing is that I don't think it should be a showdown, but unfortunately it is. Like, it's usually just, or I'll just say, I won't say usually, I'll say in my experience, you know, for me, it was trying to provide for my kids, like just have a life that was not like constant struggle, constant like getting, you know, tossed here and there. And when I go to get help from like the place that you're supposed to go, you know, you're in this situation, you go here and you deal with it. And a lot of times there's just a very like hard wall that you hit up against, you know, of like, leave your emotions outside, leave your humanity outside. Don't expect us to show you any type of empathy. And it's all kind of just made to shame you for wanting consideration, for wanting, you know, to tell your story and your experience and say how that differs from what a piece of paper says that you should be experiencing by now.
Yeah.
You know, it's embittering and outraging and like exhausting to go through that, and you know, constant up and down like throughout life in different ways, and you know, especially when you have children who are depending on you. And for me it was like, you know what, there was a time when I really wasn't trying at all, and then, you know, or I didn't put much effort in. I'll say, I won't say I was never like not really trying, but there was a time when I didn't put forth much effort because I didn't want to feel like my soul was being crushed. And then I realized I couldn't live, you know, in that half-assed way. I had to really try and give it all, as far as like, you know, people say coming up, but like, I'm not just talking about money. I was talking about just like everything, you know, like my life. It wasn't just about money, you know, or being in a certain status, but like, sorry, I kind of got off a little bit, but yeah, I mean,
as you're going though, like, you know, we can't just ride right past the initial barrier, right? Like, I mean, because that's the place that we hit up against. That's the place that we and other partners that we work with are trying to dwell in and occupy and try and, you know, help and deal. And so I'm gonna bring this up. Oh no, I'm gonna bring this up. Okay, so from a human development perspective is where you and I come in from developmental work and behavioral work that I do, to peer developmental work and really, you know, strong relational, intuitive, empathetic, partnering work that's very real for you, because you are, in fact, just like this woman that we're, you know, working with right now. There are a lot of mirrors that you get with her, right? And that's why it works. That's why she's connecting with you, and you know, it's helping in that particular space. And yet, as you've said, as you share her experiences that have brought her to where she is, your experiences that brought you to where you are, there are these walls that you hit up against. And it's weird that often the wall that you smash up against that stops you dead in your tracks usually has a name. It's representative of an institution. It has a name that says blah, blah, blah service, or blah service administration, or, you know, the Department of blah, blah, blah services. Do you feel served? Do you feel served economically? Do you feel served in terms of healthcare? Do you feel served in terms of education, in terms of transportation to be able to be mobile in your life for your children and for yourself, to work and to keep steady patterns of living? How's all that working?
I've had to have, like, I don't know about, no, I don't feel served. I feel completely underserved, honestly. And I've had to, like, I didn't want to normalize being underserved or like things not working, but I also can't just be in a panic, live in a constant state of uproar, like, and panic like I have. But, you know, so I try to like have some sort of balance with that and like not freak out every time, like, oh, you know, this is not working, you know, oh, you know, go figure. And you would think that after a while you could just guess the pattern, but you can't, because once you feel like you have a hold on it, then something else changes. And it doesn't leave you feeling balanced or serviced. It leaves you feeling crazy, because if I am to bring that up, how something's not working, then, what I can look forward to is more judgment and people pointing the fingers, and this is people that because ultimately you have to deal with people to even get through to the services. We're not there yet where like robots can do it all. So you going in, if you're going to say something about what's going on, you're going to be punished in some way, or shamed in some way, which honestly is a bad enough punishment, especially when you're already in a position where you need to ask for support.
Yeah. It's interesting, right? You've mentioned this idea that there are moving parameters, shifting parameters, right? Like I liked how you said it, just when you figure out the pattern, it changes, right? And that made me think of something. I said, the idea that if there is a face that one can put on, because we're not talking about that, we're talking about a massive institutional conglomerate, right? There's lots of different institutions that are all intertwined, and yet they're all disconnected. And, oh, well, you didn't sign this, you have to go over there, but they sent me over here to you. Well, I don't know what to tell you. All that, everybody knows it, and they know it in different ways. They know it maybe in ways where it's I hate going to the DMV, or, oh my God, I had to go here to deal with this, like some licensing issue, and it was so frustrating. And that is maybe a space of privilege when that's the only bureaucracy that you have to deal with. But if you have to deal with bureaucracy in the space of things that very directly and very imminently affect your life, like whether the electricity stays on, whether these things are paid, because those are assisted services in one's life. But that can't just be, oops, I forget about it, because that means we don't cook dinner that night. That means we can't stay there. That means that can't get done. And it's even at larger levels. That means, let's say, because there are people who have a very unclear understanding of poverty, in the sense that if you're living in economic distress, your complaint could be that the subsidization you've received to pay the electric bill, right? But those people were late and it didn't go through, and now this is off. And maybe what's happening is, oh no, my kid can't finish his math homework online, which is from the school, right? Or I can't do my work, or I can't do this that we're doing here. Right. Like, oh, the lights just went out. Well, too bad, podcast, right? Like it's that kind of thing. And yet those lines are always moving, and there's no easy way to self-empower to challenge that, because where do you even do it? Is it up at this level? Is it this level? Is it this asshole that just was having a bad day? In the sense that you can't just, because you can't just drop an axe on that person, which people often try to do, because that's just, they're worried about why their wife is leaving them, and not so worried about you, because, hey, I got problems too, and right. They're not superheroes, even though they're working in a place that's supposed to serve human need, right? But that's a job, for most people. So there was that, but then there's also spaces of authority where you can go, where you're supposed to go. And there are barriers there. There are specific barriers, right?
Yeah.
Tell me about those barriers. Tell me about people in positions of authority and how they've been barriers for you. What have they been like?
Oh gosh. I guess we're talking specifically about like, like agency with agencies.
Right.
But
Yeah, let's think about it as the agency boss. That's
Yeah.
the person, right?
Yeah.
It's at the point where you're like, I got to go over your head because this isn't getting done, and you're taking a stance of empowerment. You're taking a stance of like, I've gone to some of my community members and asked around, and we've developed a stance. Like maybe we're all going together,
Yeah.
right? And if you do that, then you get to the agency boss. So if it's in an RPG, if it's in a game, you got through all the skeletons and swords, and now suddenly you're at the like, they may not be the big thing, but they're the first boss. They're like, "What's up? You're not getting past here," and you may go to critical damage before you can get through that one, right? So that's the idea. Like this agency boss.
Yeah.
Why are they such a struggle?
Yeah, I think about it too sometimes. It's like when you bring an issue to someone like that is in a position of authority, like you can notice sometimes how perturbed they are, like that you're insulting their job. And it's just like, but isn't it your job to take these complaints? Like, I don't want to hurt your feelings. I just want to be served, and this is not serving me. So I have to tell you. But that is usually met with like a, you humble recipient are not supposed to challenge this.
Yeah, even though their daily mantra when they get to work should be like when they meet you and say, "Oh, hello, Miss Johnson. I am so-and-so, the director of getting shit done for you," right? Like it should be that level of acceptance, So anyway, that's the kind of thing that is occurring in a lot of different spaces. It's occurring in the space of our friend and client who's going through the challenges that she's facing, and her agency boss that is a barrier happens to be twofold. She's had to fight two bosses, right? So she's fighting a position of power in the judiciary, in the space of a judge, and she's fighting an authority in the position of, more like what you had said, the person who's supposed to really not only serve her but be a protector, which is literally called a public defender. Right, just so you know, like when they're like, "Defenders assemble," it's like it's like you're supposed to be a hero, man, right? Like,
yes.
So here's what I'm going to posit. Here's what we can posit here, right? There's a lot of stuff. You can see it all over, social media, all over Instagram, all over Twitter. 5 signs that your husband's a narcissist, 10 ways to tell whether your work boss, as in this article that we're looking at right now, is a narcissist, right? So everybody knows about narcissists, and it's overdiagnosed. Everyone's like, "Oh, they're a narcissist." And it's usually anytime you hit the wall of not being able to come to an agreement about something, you can now say the other person's a narcissist. I've been called a narcissist over and over again, right? By everybody that disagrees with something. But there are still some ideas, especially when we think from an intersectional lens, about whether or not we can tell, or whether or not we can apply a model that's used over here to over here. So let's say that we are person in need, right? In community, person in need. And we are going to all the places where we are feeling apprehensive about going there. It's a challenge. We know what this has been like. We've been there 100 times before, and 99 of those times have been not so good. So this time I need something. This is a lifeline for me. And there are even places in culture and society, I'm already going with this idea that most of societies, you are useless. You can't pick yourself up by your bootstraps and get things done in your life. And it's all of that. And you're like, right, but this thing is positioned as giving me help so that I can not worry about hunger, death, illness, homelessness, so I can worry about training for a job and making my kids be successful in school, like, right, to better oneself. Like, why can't those people better themselves? We're trying, bitch, right? We're trying. Oh, you're muted. Yep. Yeah.
Sorry.
Give me the tirade again.
No, I was saying, yeah, we're trying to outline that for you right now, why it's not working.
Yeah. So I propose that there are traits. I haven't looked at what this article has written, right? I kind of peeked at the first thing. This is a Psychology Today, 10 signs your coworker or colleague is a narcissist, narcissism in the workplace. This guy, Preston, he looks like he knows, he has 4 letters at the end of his name. I only have 3, right? But if I combine 2 degrees, I'll have 7. I can have 7 letters, right?
What about the letters that's already in your name?
What's that?
I said, what about the letters that's already in your name?
I know, that's right. But Preston has given a good, outline, how you can tell, so people can kind of, game the system a little bit, use a little, like, they call it in the military psychological warfare. Right. So in the workplace, I'm sure that's similarly used, right? Psyops, right? So this is psyoping stuff.
That goes on.
What's that?
I said that needs to go on in the workplace too. Like,
exactly.
You have to protect yourself.
So let's see if we can apply what they're using here. There's 10, right? There's 10 signs. How many of these signs can we apply to the agency bosses that are always like, you must solve the riddle before you come through here. Like they're always protecting the gate, right? So how many can we apply? Let's
just
see.
Wrote something like that today.
Yeah, let's see. So
go ahead.
Yeah, well, we'll use that, but let's see where we can go. Okay, so let's see. Number one. The person is a conversation hoarder and interrupter. Let's see. That's enough of me talking about myself. Let's hear you talk about me, anonymous narcissist, right? So most narcissists are highly conceited and enjoy talking about his or her project's accomplishments or personal life incessantly, as if what they do is the most interesting thing in the world. They show little interest and empathy in you. I think we're going to see a lot of lacking of empathy, right? So that's going to be a main thing. And if these service agency bosses all collectively lack empathy, ding, ding, like that's the problem, folks, right?
Yes.
So when you do talk about you own, come on, Psychology Today. Like do you want us to proofread your stuff for you? Like we can do that, pay us. When you do talk about your own opinions and endeavors, the narcissist may quickly change the focus back to themselves. Many narcissists enjoy hearing themselves speak. Right? Like, so who do we know? Even, let's just say from our recent engagements with people that we are coming up before, relative to our client's ongoing criminal justice case.
Right.
Let's think about a judge, right? Let's think about a judge. Is that judge a conversation hoarder?
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. I mean, by the nature of her position, she
I was
hoards
just gonna say
all day, right?
Just gonna say.
Yeah. And
you can see it when you can tell that someone is upset that like the thing is not going their way. It's not even just the conversation, but like the whole, like, if there's any new like thing, anything that's like not exactly with the flow, let's just stamp the thing and pass it on and stamp the thing. Then it's just like, what? And then it's like a tongue thrashing, like thoroughly, let's just make you feel like the child you're supposed to behave like when you walk in here.
Exactly. So we've come to a place where this is, this is the thing, and she is I suppose, institutionally and culturally empowered to interrupt all the time, because she gets to interrupt everybody, right? So even when you're trying to explain your circumstances, and it's often only you as the person who is there with the weight of everything on you as the defendant, right?
Right.
And if you have, as in the case of our client, an incredibly unempathetic, non-empathetic, something very lacking empathy public defender, and someone who is very non-communicative, and if I was, trying to crawl up onto the boat as I'm escaping in the water, thrashing from a shark that's about to eat me, and she was standing there, I think I might have to take my chances with the shark, because I don't know that I'd be helped very well. I don't know. She might hit me in the head with something, so I was easier prey for the shark, right? So.
Yes.
So in that case, like, these are individuals that incredibly, lack empathy, and yet they are arbiters of fate for human beings.
I think it's not even just the lack of empathy, but it's also the abusiveness. Like,
oh my God, okay, you're just dialing it right up. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Were we supposed to?
Well, I guess we
not
were
say that?
easing into it, and we weren't just gonna say down with the system, and
I'm not saying down with the system. I'm saying down with the abuse.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Oh, I guess that. Never mind.
Yeah. Well, it is. That's what it has to be, because that's why we're using these indicators, right? Conversation order and interrupter, right? So we saw that. Let's go to number two. Name and status dropper. Okay. So we were in that hearing today, this morning, with our client, right? And this particular person, this judge, was first, I believe she literally at one point, was sitting there. She was like, okay, so client, case number, blah, blah, blah. And okay, so Mr. So-and-so, you're defending, and and that guy was like, oh, Your Honor, I'm also co-counsel with Mr. So-and-so. And that guy comes on, and it was a Zoom hearing, COVID and all that, right? And that guy comes on, and the judge is like, well, now, Bob, great to see you. Oh, I see someone has not only grown the hair on his head, but also on his face. And she was complimenting his beard, while this person is like, how many years in prison?
Right.
Like, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? And so does number 2 apply?
Oh,
name, status, and dropper,
definitely.
right? Like even for our client, like, I know Billy Menendez,
blah, blah. Right, right.
Okay, but that person is a defense attorney for this person, and she's complaining about being served by this individual, by the defense attorney, and you're saying, just had beer with him the other day, went out to Starbucks, and it just, doesn't that feel daunting as a person, where you're like, I think I'm the only one who's not a member of this club? Right.
Yes. Yeah, it absolutely is. And I even hate, like, and when, as like for a public defender or whatever, I don't know, it just really gets on my nerves when you're on a meeting or on a hearing, for your client, and it's just like all this side conversation where it's just like, yeah. Obviously you don't care, but you don't have to be that obvious that you just don't, like, you know what I mean? You can just look forward or turn your camera off instead of having this whole happy experience all over top of my misery.
Right, because workplace banter is not appropriate in certain places. In court, even though, yes, you have to work there all day long, but you chose it. You chose that profession. No one just says, oh, things didn't work out, guess I'll go into law, right? Like, that's a very intentional decision. And when we're talking not about big business law, we're talking about criminal justice. We're talking about an awareness that one way or the other, you're not dealing with like happy circumstances and whatnot. I mean, you know, there are judges that joke with defendants that are standing before them, like saying, well, now, you know, we're going to do this for you, Mr. So-and-so. And, you know, just so, you know, because thinking that, well, I'm only giving you 4 years, you know, I just giving you a break there, pal. So he feels then that he can banter with the defendant and say, well, you know, but just make sure you stay away from knives. You know, it's like, oh my God, man.
So sorry, but that's just like, Judge, you don't even realize.
Oh my God.
You just don't know.
I know. So, okay, so we got 2 out of 10. How do you think we're going to do? What's your prediction? Are we going to go, how high can we go? You think it'll be 10 out of 10?
I'm gonna say between 8 and 10 out of 10.
Okay, let's.
But I would not be surprised.
You know what? Let's not go general. Let's just say let's refine. Let's refine our data set, right? Let's say we're just going to talk about our experience in court today, and we
10 out of 10.
and not even, and we're not even gonna say, we're not even gonna focus on the public defender. We're just gonna focus on this judge.
Yeah.
As the 2 nodes of dissonance and resistance and malice, right? All of that, like, wow, really? Like, innocent until proven guilty. Bullshit, man. Bullshit. That person was like, probably, you know, flip a coin, you know, how do I feel today? And as they're getting into their car in the morning, they spill their Danish on their like suit, and they're just like, yeah, innocent until proven guilty. Yeah, man. Yeah. So let's go to number 3. Spotlight hogger. Let's you know, some of these
are obvious.
Check, right? Check.
Yeah.
Steal or take disproportional credit. Okay, I'm gonna go with not today's hearing. I'm gonna pull executive privilege here and say, in the other hearing, the other day, with this same judge, she said, I'm gonna take a stab at this one, right? She said, now, I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but I know that I'm going to disallow this psychiatrist evaluation because I don't think it's right. That's what was said. What? How would it? It was 30 pages long.
And then and
it had great detail, and you're just gonna say, nope, you're disallowing it? So is that taking disproportional credit, or like as though you're somehow, because she acknowledged, I'm a judge and I do have to make these decisions, but those decisions aren't arbitrary, and they certainly cannot be evidence-based. You have to say, I mean, at least say in that case why you disagree that that professional mental health professionals assessment of our client as being not competent to stand trial or to go into court proceedings. Why would you say that that is not the case? Why would you disagree? And on record, not give reasoning?
Because you are in a position that keeps that lifestyle going, that supports your habit. Like you can just get away with that. Who's gonna stop her in that, you know?
I like that. Supports her habit.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's even kind of a personal thing. I mean, I think it's you're culturally empowered, certainly. Yeah. Like, I am a judge, you know?
Right, yes, definitely.
And she's not like a super high judge, but she's a judge in a pretty big judicial circuit, right? In Florida. And Florida, I mean, that's going to give folks, you know, some idea of what we're talking about. I mean, we're going to be super anonymized about this, everybody, but you know, that's why we're talking in vagaries and whatnot. I mean, we have all sorts of, we have legal privilege, like, you know, we have HIPAA issues, we have FERPA issues. We respect all of those issues because we work with people in at-risk spaces. So, you know, you gotta protect. You gotta protect.
Yeah.
Someone's gotta protect people. Right?
I was just gonna say somebody's got
to, right? So we're protecting people, and we're also protecting the identity of the people that we are critiquing, like this judge, right? But not her actions. Certainly not her actions. You know, there's different courts. There's courts of law. There's public courts of opinion, and we just happen to be arbiters in that latter space. So here you go. Okay. Hope you get a fair trial there, pal. Because right now we got 10 charges pending, and we've proven 4. Right? So you're not doing so good. You know, you're not doing so good.
You can't get away from the consequences forever.
I know. You can't get away from these consequences forever. Wait, I'm trying to tell you, said our client, that I'm not being well served here, and we are not prepared in a very cogent and professional way, even though her public defender wasn't helping out at all. And all the judge had to say was, you can't avoid this. You can't avoid consequences forever. It's like, I'm not trying to avoid anything. And it's like, she's been... Yeah.
How are you gonna say that to somebody that's been in court all the time? If I was trying to avoid it, you want to know where I've been?
Yeah.
Somewhere hot. And far away from here.
Yeah. Like you got to give points for the fact that I'm here, man. Right. Like, come on, you know, like.
So, he's gonna be from Canada, like.
Yeah.
Not that that's place hot.
Yeah. I'm gonna pass because I'm not particularly thinking she's very charming.
Oh, no, we're not going to pass that one because you know what? Yeah, we're just gonna, it's the same person, different days, but this is how it happened for me.
But
because
the
on the one
narcissist
hand,
shifts. The narcissist does that. It's weird. There's a thing about narcissists, right? Where they will, I mean, have you heard this? Like, our narcissist will, on the front end, give you ultimate praise, make you feel like you're the center of the world, right? Center of the universe. And then one day they just switch.
Have I heard it? You mean,
you've.
How many times have I experienced it?
Well, but I think we experienced it with her, so I think this counts too.
Yes, and that's what she absolutely
She made us think
switched.
3 hearings ago. She made us think like, oh, she will be an impartial person, and she will leave space for us to make a case for. And we're not. Let's all let everybody know. Let's let everybody know, folks. It doesn't even matter in terms of, I mean, if you know, I don't know. I mean, you guys are going to be watching this when you're watching it, but it is a criminal justice court case. It is a fraud case, and it is, you know, I guess, okay, I'm already saying it. It's like, the allegation is defrauding a place, a company, an organization for a sum of money over time, and having done so at a place where that person, our client, was employed, right? So, woo, that's uncommon, you know? Like, people do this all the time. People do it. There are people who do it, and they do it so well and for so much money in this society, and they're given raises, right? They are promoted. They're like, you did good, pal. So if anything, our client, you know, folks, you know, she's looking for work. Like, I mean, you know, like, hire her because she's good. She's good. You know, like, what do you want to do? What do you want to do here? She's got skill. But the idea here is that our client's saying, yep, I did it. Right? But there are multiple factors that have to do, which is where our involvement comes in,
right?
In being professionals who build out the full context. Because you know what? In our business, we say context matters. Context matters. You know, there can be this person who has these charges and this person who has the same charges. Two completely different cases. Different motivations, different circumstances, different environments, different contexts, different intentions, all of that, right? And once again, folks, let's remind you, we are not legal professionals. We are developmental and behavioral professionals. And what we're trying to say is, for our client, a lot happened in terms of the trauma of a lifetime. And we're just going to skip through this because this is a whole other discussion, right? Adverse childhood experiences leading to all sorts of trauma-induced physical and mental ailment and dependency and just misery in adulthood, which is then triggered, maybe not for many years, but then suddenly triggered in a particular place, like this workplace, by a supervisor who is a narcissist and a misogynist. And there's definitely some aspects of sexual, maybe not sexual, but harassment, because sexual harassment is about power and control. Just saying. I'm just saying. Just saying.
I love that you're saying. I love that you're saying.
Right? I'm just saying. But
I love
that was there, and that triggered our client. And she made poor decisions to cope with that re-trauma experience, re-traumatized experience, right? She dealt with it by lashing out. And she said, oh yeah, and things happened over time. You know, I would say, you know, someone who takes the actions that she did in the context that she did, you know, in a very, you know, discompassionate way for the person who is the financial victim in this case, but is, again, should I repeat all the misogyny and the, okay, yeah, because, yeah, right, like all that, right? Still trying to control, you know, threatening text messages, anonymized text messages to her and her kids about ding dong, the jail bus is coming or something like that, right? Just saying.
Yeah.
You know, Judge, if you ever watch this, just saying, you remember us, you know who we are. This is what you failed to, or this is what you chose not to look at. This is what you chose not to look at. Please exist with that knowledge. And I hope it changes you in some capacity. But this is what you chose not to look at. You cannot serve one victim by victimizing somebody else. You can't do that. Yes, this was a wrongdoing, but it was done in a way that was reactive to a lot of what was going on. And there are different vectors of understanding from our behavioral developmental perspective, but from the psychiatric evaluation that she received, from different places, that there were unmanaged mental health issues in this case that were, and that was our job to do, building out the trauma narrative. That is what fed into this space, and this was what happened. So this wasn't an evil criminal mastermind implementing a brilliantly devised plan to defraud this person. This was someone who was hurt and angry not because of the past, hurt and angry because of what this employer did to her, but that triggered past defense mechanisms and coping mechanisms. And so she did, she struck out, she did what she did, and that resulted in the place where we are today. So we say all that to say, this isn't about, she's innocent, Your Honor. This is about, consider, as a judge who's supposed to be open to the justice of the case, consider as a judge that you are serving the financial victim, and there are circumstances that have to be observed there as well, because there's claims of financial distress that are not evidenced,
Right.
but no one is challenging that. But never mind that, just financial issues. And yet consider, through even the employment history of this place, which has lots of witnesses that can be deposed relative to their experience with this individual, consider that this was an action that was taken not out of an intentional planned malice, but it was taken out of a reactionary seeking of revenge, which is ugly enough to say. It's an ugly sentiment, but that's what was done. And folks, if you don't know, I don't know where you've been living, but I'm sure you can throw a stone and hit someone who wants to very brutally fuck someone else over because of how they've been wronged. So,
or maybe you're that person.
Yeah. Or maybe you're the person who's wronged somebody else. So watch out, Jack. Karma's a bitch and she's coming. Right? So that's what we're saying. And that's what we're asking of this judge, right? We're talking about judiciary responsibility. I don't know. Let me show you something. Right?
Yeah.
This was really cool because let's go here. Let's take a look at her, Victoria Broussard, right? She's an attorney, and this was posted about her. It was a message that she put out there on in support of her client. This is older, but listen to this.
Everyone is talking about what happens when you encounter law enforcement on the streets. All eyes are on America right now with regard to this topic. But my question is, what happens when you go into the courtroom? You encounter that same mentality in the courtroom that administers the remaining of your justice. And who administers this justice? The same people who have biases and prejudices that we see on the streets. For instance, my client, Malachi York, was sentenced to 135 years in a federal prison with no possibility of parole for non-violent offenses. He had no significant criminal history prior to being arrested. And when he got into the justice system and he was on trial, there was no physical evidence, no DNA evidence, and he was sentenced to an unthinkable amount of time in prison. My client is 71 years old and is in failing health. He is frequently found unconscious on his cell floor and is not able to get the adequate medical care that he needs. Right now, we are on a quest to free him. We are on a quest to seek the president's help in providing a clemency to my client to commute his sentence and release him.
Where are you, Barack?
And you can help by going to change.org and signing our petition.
Yeah. So I mean, so Paul, I mean, if that was now, yeah, I would just go sign that petition, folks.
Right.
But look at that. Look at her.
Yeah.
Miss Broussard. Amen, sister. I mean, this is.
And where are you? Because
yeah, right. I think she says where she's at in the beginning of the video, but I don't know. I mean, maybe the fates will bring us all together. We look forward to working with you. Forward, sister, forward. So that's brilliant, right? Because that is, like that. We'll go over here. No, I keep going to the wrong one. We'll go over here. In case you didn't notice, guys, I mean, we were never the best in class when it came to the rigorous structure of a PowerPoint presentation. We're abstract thinkers. We're just gonna go, Look at this. Look at the ridiculous backgrounds we each have, right? Like that's just where we live, folks. That's just where we live, right? So but we're talking about judicial reform. In case you haven't figured it out, we're talking about judicial reform. No justice, no peace. And in this case, we're not threatening anybody. All we're saying is no justice, and we are fucking annoying in our persistence to change things. So I know, like, our favorite judge from today and from this conversation, I know she feels some kind of way about us, but Your Honor, you're looking at these smiling faces for a long time to come. So
yeah, because when you're dealing with something that nobody wants to put their hands on, everybody's just like, oh, that's gross, don't touch it, don't touch it, don't touch it, but you keep on tripping over it and falling into it and getting sucked down by it. I'm sorry, I'm gonna annoy the piss out of a lot of people.
Yeah. So Victoria Broussard, right? I mean, law reform, access to justice programs, court reform, justice admin reform, like strengthening the legal community. I mean, she's out there, man. I like that. I like how she thinks. And she too can be a gatekeeper, right? Like, and that's the kind of gatekeeper that we love. That's the kind of gatekeeper, to places of, or to provide access to places of privilege, right? Yeah. Like, I'm gonna fight for you. And folks, when we're talking about privilege, we're talking about power. I'm sure you guys have heard, the idea of share power, share privilege, right? Like, if you have it, give it to, like, not you're not releasing it. You're never going to release it. It's your privilege. Power you may be able to relinquish, but no one's asking you to relinquish everything. Just share it, right? Like how they said in kindergarten, right? Like, sharing is caring, right? So just share it. And that's what Ms. Broussard is doing. That's what we're trying to do. We come from different aspects of privilege, right? I certainly come from a very, openly, like, well-privileged, well-educated, been able to have great opportunities professionally, and, really tried to change things from within the system, right? Spoiler alert, guys. If you want to really try that, you're coming out of school right now, you're coming into the workplace, you're joining institutions, you're like, I'm gonna do it. Don't, right? Because you might a little bit, but it might just revert, right? You saw that guy on screen, in case some of you don't know, some of our Zoomers, right? That's Barack Obama. He was our president from 2008 to when he relinquished that seat to President Trump. And what you can see in that particular space is lots of hope and change occurred. And then the people who felt disenfranchised by that hope and change, hint, people of color, white people, but the same, right? Then when Trump came in, they said, fuck hope and change. We want America to be great again, like when we dominated as white people. This is the social hegemony. Please observe and respect it. And when that happened, it reverted. So, changing the system, from within and systems change and reforming the system in this way and that way. Folks, those people don't want to let go of that power. Just like this judge in that one space, and all the way up and all the way into the macro social realm, right? They don't want to let go of that power. We need new systems. We need to dismantle certain parts of the existing system, and we need to revision aspects of what we're going to then rebuild. Right? It's not just do it this way and a couple of degrees shift here or there, right? And yet what we're asking for, like what Victoria Broussard asked for, is not that revolutionary, right? It's just consider the full context of the case. And it's a human context. So it's not just socioeconomic, and it's not just policy oriented. It is also behavioral, it's trauma informed, it is developmental in terms of this person, because remember we said that two people who did the same thing idea, this person's like, I'm just gonna fucking do it again. Fuck you. Right? There's definitely people who will feel that way. There's definitely people who cannot escape that particular intentionality because they are very damaged in and of themselves. And then there's people who are visibly in court in front of you showing over the period. And folks, some of these cases, they last a very long time. And you just keep going back and forth. Like this one we're talking about is going on 2 years. And most of that time, our client spent in the jail while her children were outside. Not prison, but jail, holding at the county jail. And folks, prison is horrible. County jails are a circle of hell. You don't want to go there. And if any of you have even been in a night of lockup, you know what we're talking about. So the idea we're talking about here, just like with Ms. Broussard's client, you know, there was this idea that you're not only looking at the evidence that may not be as rigorous as what the prosecution is talking about, she was looking at other aspects of it. She was looking at it as the aspect of, wait a minute, why are you coming down so heavy? This is very synonymous with our client. Of course, that's why we showed you the video. Because our client has, as Ms. Broussard said of her client, no prior history, a very particular class of criminal offense that we're talking about, non-violent. Folks, that has to be considered. Yeah, because we were literally in a hearing today with our client, and there were people who were being either declared, I mean, there was mitigation occurring relative to their sentences and whatever the case was, or even the weight of what was being discussed was mitigated. And these were people who had engaged in battery, domestic violence, gun violence, and you know, those all have their own context as well. Those all have their developmental considerations as well. But as in Ms. Broussard's case, as we're talking about, and in our client's case, none of that happened. It was nonviolent, and there were other intervening factors. But yeah,
I think it's it really points to what is valued in the space of, like, in the justice space, you know, in the courtroom especially, like what's in the legal space, like what's really valued. Because in my experience, where I was a victim of domestic violence and went to court to try and, like, and it's not an easy thing to go in court and be like, yes, this happened. So like I boosted myself, I bolstered myself, I had support, I, you know, like, all right, I'm gonna go do this. And then it was like, I didn't even, you know, testify or anything. It was just like, okay, we already did everything. And I'm just like, okay, well, that's great, you know. But I just told him, actually I told him, I was like, this is why women don't like participate in this whole thing, because you're telling me that this is just, it wasn't as bad. This is what he said to me. This was, I think, you know, it was like, wasn't that bad or whatever. But then if you, so you can, do you see what I'm saying? Like you can take physical damage, but just don't let anyone get you. If somebody gets your money, then we're really gonna get them.
Yeah.
Especially if they got, no, not my money, because I don't have enough.
No, that's really well put. That's the thing, because that's exactly what's being said. Folks, there's, okay, one thing you got to consider here is everything that we're talking about. There's so many things that can't be covered in detail, right? It requires all of us. It requires all of you. It requires, from different points of experience, speaking about similar institutional and social constructs, as we're talking about, like the judicial system, the court system, the justice system. I mean,
yeah, they know.
That's not really great branding, or maybe it's brilliant branding, right? Like, let's choose a word that is categorical. Justice. How much justice maybe is a question, right? Or how little
justice for whom?
Or justice for whom, right? So
pretty good question.
That's a really good question, because that goes to your point about why is there such heavy heavy, like coming down against financial crimes or crimes of property, you know, like things like that. Like and it's not always, and it's again, whose finances
Right.
and whose property, right?
Right. Thank you. Yeah.
So that's a really important consideration, right? So let's think about, I mean, we're still in the place of, you know, talking about our judge. You know, we went through 5. I'm gonna say, if we let's see if there's any juicier pieces from 6 through 10, and let's see if that can give us, you know, further platforms to approach this with, right? They break rules and social norms. They feel entitled and special to do so. So we definitely have a real, this is my courtroom kind of vibe coming from our friend, the judge, right? Yeah. But there's something else there, right? There's something else there that I saw. Let me know if you saw this too, right? There's this idea that the rules certainly don't apply in both directions, right? They apply very heavily here, but when rules like, oh, we messed up this filing this appeal, or we had the wrong information, or we provided this plea offer and then took it away, and there's all sorts of hokiness that is occurring on that end in our client's case and in many other cases. But somehow in this space, like the judge is like, you know, like that's, right. You know, okay, let's get to the point of what we're talking about here. Like, well, we got here because of all that shit, right? So we have to talk about that, but you're not gonna, right? Like, right. So that's breaking rules and the norms of even that courtroom space. And the problem is further complicated because the person, like, we can't say that on behalf of our client. Right. Our client can't say that because if she speaks up and, like, Your Honor, like, it's gonna be likely just talked over. But what it's definitely going to do, especially for our client who is a woman of color with this white judge, is going to be translated, as it has been in this case, and as has been in many other cases like this, as, oh, she's problematic. Ding, click, 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 file, you know, placed away, right? Like that's right. There. So now our client is constantly, oh, she's like that. She's one of those. And that's a further bias that continues to separate out the norms by which everybody can move with. Because when, from the defendant side, we're calling out fuck ups, on the authority side, it's, you know, rules, schmools, right? But when the defendant, if one little thing isn't done, it is fucking hammered.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, what are people going to say to us, right? Like, boo-hoo, toughen up. That's like what the world is. But isn't that a problem?
Yes, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Absolutely, that's a problem. And anyone else that bumps into this problem, or not even, you can't just bump into it, sorry to tell you, but like anyone else who has this problem or begins to, like someone that didn't know, but like gets even a little bit of an inkling of like, oh, this is what they were talking about, or this is how it is, you know, we'll feel the same way. We'll feel like, hey, can I get some consideration here? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way. I got all the way to Z, but then you can't even get to C without, no, you can't even get to B without being like, you can't even get all the way through A. It's right. Just like a paper trail place of like, let's stamp this thing. It's almost like, to me, it feels like a conveyor belt. Like, especially when you see like either in the courtroom or just on Zoom, where there's just like it feels like a conveyor belt experience. And you know when they get mad when you mess up their conveyor belt.
You are absolutely right, because that's the problem. It's run like a factory, right? And the problem is that when you're sitting in that position on the factory with your drill, right, you're like, you know, this is my job. I like next, next,
Right.
next.
Right.
And if someone's like, hey, the tool you're using or the screw you're using or whatever else is happening over here, if you know, try it this way, or that's not being done right, this is actually causing a danger or something, it just, because it has to like just slow everything down, everything stops, we don't have time for it. Like, that's the real problem that we're coming up against here is, you know, can our social structures take it to really stop all of this in its tracks? I mean, even COVID couldn't stop everything in its tracks. It just delayed stuff. It didn't really change a lot.
Yeah.
It didn't even change, like, I mean, when we saw the benefits of like, hey, what's that over there? We can see it for the first time ever. And people are like, that's the sky in Beijing, China. You know, and they were like, oh, that's what happens when we don't put all that shit into the air. That's cool. We like that. Pollution's back.
All right, back to work.
Yep.
That was a quick break.
Yeah, to see the sun for the
schedule
first time, right? Like in the Matrix. Like it's just you know, and this is, we'll look at number 7, you know, sensitive to criticism, blame others for failings. Yeah, what do you think? What do you think?
We're hitting some people outside of the legal system too, but yeah, we're gonna stay on point.
yeah.
Yes, that definitely is it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's exactly why we're here, because we can't, not only is it all this other stuff, but we can't even bring it up. Yeah. God forbid I tell you your pants are down.
Yeah. So we got that. And, you know,
let's see what this one is.
Passive aggressive tendencies. I mean, you know, this is like, you know what this is? This is like not a good climax, because it's not like anything's a surprise. So let's just see 9 and 10. Superior, inferior, oriented. Oh, no, I wouldn't have guessed that at all, right?
Didn't I tell you last time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Mom. Wait, calm down.
So never mind that I've submitted 2 reports and a plan for our clients. You know, what we're ultimately going for, which is a community care. This is the model that we call it, community care probationary sentence. Folks, those are real. Those are real. Yes. And people, those are rigorous. And remember, we're talking about non-violent offenders. We're talking about people who made poor choices, and they're likely going to have to make restitution for those choices. And they are, you know, working towards that. And they're working to build themselves up and to be, as we all want, right? But we want good standard citizens, you know? Well, yeah, they're working at it, right? But if they go away to the Department of Corrections, you know, here's what I'm just going to say, right? Here's what I'm going to say. Don't bitch about the potholes on your street, because your taxes are definitely going to paying for those beds in those prisons through federal subsidies to all these prisons, even private, and fuck your potholes, right? So into where are my tax dollars going? They're going there, folks, and they're going to fucking machines of death that are there to kill people who look like me in faraway places. That's where all our fucking money's going. Okay, but you know, sorry, soapbox. right? Negative and toxic
Sometimes you gotta
emotions.
get on it.
Yeah, how'd that work? How'd that work for our judge friend?
She
Was pissed at me, man.
It's not even just that. It was just some real like what?
Yeah.
Y'all better get that judge her coffee. Like,
Like, I submitted it to her, all that shit. Submitted, like, she knows who I am. We've talked.
I think the one had to do with the other, like the inferior orientation, like the fact that you confronted her with truth in the way that you did, which was just freaking professional. Like, how dare you?
Yeah.
And then that brought on all the negative toxicity that we experienced.
And folks, what Nadine's talking about in that case is, confronting her was only confronting her with the idea that my client feels unprepared and underrepresented to what she's legally granted in terms of fair representation, right? And we want to challenge some really heavy mistakes and omissions that have occurred. And she was pissed. She was pissed with that. And, if your defense attorney isn't going to do it, can nobody do it? Like, nobody? You're fucked then? Like, that's it.
Right.
That's horrible. Like, that's a terrible place to go. You should be able to go to the judge, who is like the ringleader, the arbiter of the problem, of the situation, right? So let's take a look. There's this guy who is our special friend here from Yale, right? And this idea to the right to an impartial judge. Now, impartiality is nuanced, right? Impartial isn't just, I do not believe anything until I am convinced of it. It's not just that kind of thing. It's impartiality is being able to listen to the claims that the defendant is making with real emotional fervor and commitment, and has gathered professionals to assess and demonstrate through evidence, through reports that are submitted, to say, here is why these are the fucking problems you're not looking at, and we're not being served through our legal means, through our defendant or our defender. Then you have to be impartial as a judge and receive some initial pleas. Here, all we were saying is there's something wrong.
Yeah.
Not she's innocent, not she should get away with it, not any of those things. We weren't even addressing the case, aside from saying,
couldn't even get to that.
Yeah, we haven't had the opportunity to be represented well enough to gather counter evidence to what the state is claiming against our client, right? So we approached the judge because this is the kind of thing I thought judges are supposed to do, right? So can we see what this guy has to say?
Yeah,
Professor, take it away. Take it away.
Sometimes judges cannot be fair and impartial, and a lot of times that's going to be obvious. The judge is related to one of the lawyers or one of the parties. Or for some other reason, the judge disqualifies himself or herself, and so no issue is ever presented in the case. But there are going to be cases where the impartiality of the judge is going to be closely contested. And we'll look at a few of those cases today and how courts try to sort them out. The Supreme Court has said that the right to a fair and impartial judge means that the judge should have no temptation to forget the burden of proof and not hold the balance nice, clear, true between the prosecution and the defense.
It's as if she's exactly this.
Another way of putting that is judge may be disqualified if the judge's impartiality might reasonably be questioned. If an objective person, knowing all the facts and...
Yeah. Okay, knowing all the facts, right? Not even prepared to receive facts or to even consider that they are facts. She could have just said, hey, I reviewed your stuff and I think it's bullshit.
Right. Then give us right.
Okay, and tell us why. But she refused our reports. She refused the very lengthy report that was made by the psychiatrist relative to not only our client's competency to stand trial, but relative to our client's corroborative evidence. Because I didn't know, when I did all my sessions with our client, I didn't know that this psychiatric evaluation existed. She hadn't shared that with me yet, right? So I had basically come to my own developmental understandings, right? And laid out a narrative construct to be able to say, this is the picture within which holistically our client came to make the decisions, the behavioral choices that she made that landed her with these accusations, these charges, offenses, and the need to defend herself against the state, right? That's what we're trying to talk about. And we're saying none of those things were submitted by the defense attorney, two different defense attorneys. And so we're doing it, right? Like, I mean, we were able to do it. We just did it. I did it, not my client. I did it as a professional vehicle, as a intermediary space. So there's nothing hokey between the defendant and the judge.
Right.
Like, hey, let me hit you up by text, right? We're not doing that, right? It's an official inquiry and submission of evidence, to validate and justify and blah, blah, blah. And I don't know. Let's see what he's saying about evidence, and
involved. Had a doubt about the judge's impartiality, then that judge should step aside and another judge should preside over the case where there's absolutely no question that the judge can be fair and impartial. One of the
the partiality that's occurring here, it's against our client and towards the verifiable negligence, malpractice, and misrepresentation of our client that occurred through two different attorneys. One private that the judge knows, going back to our narcissism, and this guy professor saying, that judge is if that judge has a connection with parties involved, like a relationship to the attorneys, that judge, I mean, folks, that's not a surprise. You know what? That happens to everywhere. They all glad hand each other in the morning, like, how was golf, right? Did you catch that show on Netflix, right? They talk about that. We're there. You guys can be there. You can go to a public hearing, and just see how it happens. The judge knows the prosecutor. The judge knows the defense attorney. How are your kids? How's this going? And then there's you as the defendant standing there, often in chains, and in a shitty, stained, smudged body fluid, so interwoven into the fabric that you can't ever wash them out, jail jumpsuit that 1,000 other people have worn, and you're standing there in that space, relatively naked.
In their shoes.
Their shoes what?
I said literally in their shoes.
Literally in their shoes. You are right.
Yeah.
You are right. You are right. And how can there be impartiality there, man? Like, it's not that, it's a really difficult situation. It's complicated. Let's listen to a little bit more of this dude.
first cases where this came up was Berger versus United States. In this case, in the Berger versus United States case, involved Justice Landis, later to be the commissioner of baseball. The affidavit claimed that Judge Landis had said, if anybody has anything worse to say about the Germans, or will say anything worse than I have, I'd like to know what it is so I can use it myself. He said that German Americans' hearts are reeking with disloyalty, and that he knew a safe blower that he had given 9 years and is now a soldier in France. And as between him and the defendant in another case, he would prefer the safe blower.
What a dick! Oh my God! What a dick!
But this is how it gets. This is how it gets when you're allowed to just like go unchecked.
Yeah. I mean,
this is what I can build to.
This judge has an open bias, right? And that's the thing. It is proven. It's on record. It's on the court record. This judge that we're working with, her bias towards the agency bosses, right? Like, if we are claiming that there is incompetence at play that is negatively affecting the livelihood and safety and health of our client, and we're making a strong case. We're not just saying, there's not just our client saying, this happened, right?
Right.
It's a repeated and evidenced negligence, because every time the judge hears from one attorney or the, oh, I'm sorry, Your Honor, we didn't prepare that. Sorry, Your Honor, we were gone for a couple of weeks. Sorry, Your Honor, I fell behind a little bit. But now the day has come and our client's in court and some other shit is coming down. You know, so if that is evidence, if we've shown that through our own documentation, if it is all pit-pat and tied together, you know, and it's really just asking this very closed legal justice judiciary loop to just expand its horizons briefly to let other professionals in to advocate on behalf of people that have no real advocate. You're showing bias, man. You're biased against the people. I mean, you're not, I mean, we're not going to call you racist, but let's be real now. We're not going to call you classist, but let's be real now, because this judge, remember that time, was it today, was the other day, I don't know. Remember when she was talking to people like children?
Yeah, it was each of those days, by the way.
Yeah. What happened? What was that? I forget what that was. Like, what was she doing? Was she talking about, oh, it's always about the rules, right? Like when she starts court?
Yeah, and it's the rules. It's not even just like, okay, you have to say the procedures about, first off, they're procedures. Like, you don't have to, like, I'm not 5, but it's not even just that. It's just like the condescending way in which the procedures are explained, and like, you know, to go so far as to be like, you know, it's really rude. I don't know. It's not even, it's really not that, you know, it's like the personal, she just is not on the other side is what it is. So why are you getting so personal? Just read the procedures and stop like getting personal and be like, and like, because you know it's bad if you do that. It's really rude, and it's really like, we get it.
You know, it's this like this guy, Judge Landis over here, right? When he said their hearts are reeking with disloyalty, like that word reeking, right? Like that's the attitude. It's like even in our judges, like opening statements to people, right? Like, because she knows there's people outside of their circle, right? Who are there, the reeking masses, you know, it's like the reeking ones, you know, and
the stained ones.
Yeah, there's that attitude, man. There's that attitude that comes off, and it's so bad. It's really, really disheartening. Like, I feel disheartened. I'm like, and she's directly like, oh, here's the life coach guy.
Yeah.
It's like I'm like, hey,
that was like the most unprofessional thing, because she knows good and goddamn well that you're not no life coach. Like, it was just, and you know what it was? What really stuck out to me is like, she didn't even have to like acknowledge you at all or say anything about you, or like,
I wasn't
really
saying anything.
You weren't. She could have been like, I see that, you know.
The only times I've spoken in court is when at one point the defense attorney had me as a witness so that I would be able to confer on things, and that was, I swore in and I did my piece. And the only other times is when I had via email submitted material for the judge to review on behalf of our client, through her judicial assistant, which is the normal process. And the judge said, Dr. Syed, at least then she was like Dr. Syed, right?
Right.
And she was like, what's this? Or respond to this? Or what are you trying to say here? Yes, Your Honor.
Right.
Blah, 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 blah. Right? So when did she start feeling foul? Like my heart is reeking with disloyalty. When did she, like, what happened? What did I do?
Yeah.
What did I do?
I think, it's definitely, to me, what it seems like it is, as soon as you, because like even when you did say, you talked, in court or whatnot, like, and you were, it was like, it was still kind of within their parameters in a certain way, but with the email and then I think she started to see how, this is getting outside of our box and into a whole nother box, and I don't like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that very clearly means they don't give a fuck about this. We haven't even gotten to this, man. We're trying to work with jails, we're trying to work with the police and the sheriff, and it's a lot of work, folks. And you can't buy Teslas with the money you make because it don't pay shit. So yeah, that's woo. It's almost like you gotta care. You gotta care,
Yeah.
right?
But that is ultimately what is needed. Is for people to care again. Maybe that should be the next slogan.
People should care.
Like,
make America care again. How about that? Maca. Let's do Maca. Make America care again. And let's make it a blue hat, because the red is so aggressive, dude. The red is so aggressive. Make America care again. You heard it here, folks. You heard it here first.
Yes.
I don't give a shit. If you guys want to start selling it on Etsy and Redbubble, please do. Just get it out
to
there.
make a t-shirt now.
Yeah, well, do it. I'm not even gonna do it. All right, let's see what this dude has to say, and we're just gonna go live and direct here, right? We're just gonna say, we've been dancing. It's all been foreplay so far, folks, but now we're gonna get to it. We're gonna get to it, right? And we're just gonna go ahead and say, how corrupt is America's judicial system? So this is now this world has produced this, and we're just going to listen to a little bit of what this guy has to say.
A recent watchdog report estimated that almost half of all Americans think the U.S. justice system is corrupt. It is also approximated that over 2.5 million individual bribes are paid within the judicial system each
He said
year.
it, we didn't.
So what's going on? Why are America's judges so corrupt? In the early 2000s, 2 Pennsylvania judges sent thousands of children to a juvenile detention center in exchange for financial kickbacks from detention center operators. This Kids for Cash scandal resulted in long prison sentences for the guilty parties and raised the issue of judicial corruption. Judges occupy a particularly privileged status.
That's at 41 seconds, folks.
Wait,
let's just
what?
take a little bit of a break.
I'm confused. Did I hear what I thought I heard?
And listen to Cash for Kids. Let's just do that little thing.
Yeah, we gotta play that one more time.
Yeah.
In the early 2000s, 2 Pennsylvania judges sent thousands of children to a juvenile detention center in exchange for financial kickbacks from detention center operators. This Kids for Cash scandal resulted in long prison sentences for the guilty parties and raised the issue of judicial corruption. Judges occupy.
What?
Are you kidding me?
I believe that's called child trafficking.
Right.
But not only child trafficking, but child labor, right? Because those kids, in case you didn't know, went to DJJ, the Department of Juvenile Justice, and were placed in places that engage in slave labor. And they were made to work on shit that somehow fuels this economy. And because they are minors, maybe they'll cover that, maybe they won't. You guys can look it up. We didn't prepare that far back, but they are minors, so they likely weren't paid. Like, you know, there are individuals who are adults who get paid in this prison system, the adult prison system, to do prison labor. But if you've ever seen any kind of bumper stickers that say "End Prison Slavery," let's take a look at those, right? Just so you know what we're going for here. We'll get into prison gerrymandering another day, folks. That is a that is a different story, folks. An economic model that perpetuates slavery in the United States.
It's
U.S. prison and detention industry. Is it an industry?
Listen, it's as if this great nation cannot run without slavery, and so we have to have it. Like, but no. No.
And it's still, in terms of numbers, that slavery is Black people. There are definitely many inmates of other ethnicities and backgrounds, but it's still Black people. And that's shitty. Let's look at this, what they have to say over here. Can we read the full text? Yeah, okay. So forced labor should not be legal in the United States, but it is, and it's rife in the US prison and immigration detention industry. What? It sounds like a big corporation. The US prison and immigration detention industry, with public and private actors to blame. Under the 13th Amendment, involuntary servitude remains legal as punishment for a crime. Child slavery. That's what they were talking about in the other thing. Involuntary servitude remains legal as punishment for a crime. Holy crap.
Yeah.
So nothing worked. The Civil War, North versus South, abolition movements, civil rights. Holy shit.
I love that we're doing this and we're coming this hard because, like, we really, like, not in this episode, obviously, but, like, we really are going to get into, like just content-wise, like, what it takes to even, like, how do you even address something like this? You know what I mean? Like, as a person, like, but it's not, that's the thing. It's not, it's not just a one person thing. That's the problem. Is that we're divided and there's this massive industry that can just consume us.
So, Nadine inevitably and quite lucidly and eloquently opened the segue to plug what we're coming with here, folks. In one sense, how do you do it? How do you get to this? And we're all doing it. We're doing it collectively, right? All the people who do on YouTube the brilliant video essays, the brilliant actors that were the change agents that we have shown you videos of today, right? These individuals are engaging in what we engage in, not only in a social media space, but actively in the space of developmental and behavioral counseling and peer development work. And that is called developmental meaning making, right? It is predicated on certain aspects of what people in spaces like a Harvard professor, right, may indicate, and I guess, you know, we'll put links to stuff if you guys are interested down below, but there are individuals, academics, that have engaged in work in the past. Let me actually pull this up. Right, it is the academic discipline that exists in sense making, and it's Carl Weick, right? You know, Carl Weick is the academic at Harvard that some years ago came up with this program to interrogate in mostly business spaces, but really organizational spaces, how collectives, individuals and collectives of individuals shared or developed shared meaning around shit that happens, usually crises, right? So it was like, oh my God, shit has happened. The shit has hit the fan, right? What are we gonna do? How did they buzz around, come together, argue with each other, do all the stuff that needed to be done to engage in sense making, which is the process by which people give meaning to their collective experience. How simple, how beautiful. Carl Weick, ladies and gentlemen. Also, there is an individual who is quite controversial in this space and many other spaces, our friend Jordan Peterson. But I will say that his book, Maps of Meaning, The Architecture of Belief, is and remains one of the seminal texts in this space. So fair props, right? We got a lot of issues in different ways, Jordan, but we'll give you that one. It's quite good, right? Quite good. All right, so this is going back to prison slavery, right? Let's not sleep on that, folks. Right. This is at worst an economic model that perpetuates slavery in the United States. The 13th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, which abolished slavery, in fact, allows it to be used as a method of punishment for crime. And folks, that sounds a fuck lot like a plan B for all those slave masters. Right? Wonder how many plantation owners are prison industry executives. Oh, I wonder. You think anybody's done that work and done that research? I don't know. On dismantling the historical system of slavery, this created space for the continued exploitation of African American. What are they talking about there? Who are African Americans? Are those black people? Are those black folk? Black folk, right?
That's who's busting out the top of their prisons.
Yeah, yes. And now other discriminated groups, because you can't be discriminatory in your oppression, right? Got to be fair in your fair and balanced oppression, folks. That's what we do here in America. Fair and balanced oppression. It's not just you black folks.
Go in.
It's going for you, all you Mexicans, all you Dominicans, not forgetting you Haitians down there. Right? But not you Cubans, because you definitely contribute to our campaigns. All of us conservative oligarchs in the prison slavery industry. Other discriminated groups, largely from poorer migrant communities, to be essentially trafficked into the prison and detention system for labor exploitation under the control of private companies. What?
That sounds like a plantation to me. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna go ahead and spit that in the microphone right quick.
Let's look at this citation right here, right? Let's see where it takes
private company.
Where's that citation?
Oh my gosh, they both start with P.
Yeah.
That's enough for me.
EJI.org, news, history, racial slavery, prison labor, and the 13th Amendment. Whoa. Look at that ethnically diverse group.
Bro, look at the dude on the horse. Bro, what is going on? What? Look how that dude right there. He's looking up at the dude on the horse. It almost looks like to me like.
Look at this, bro. He's like,
yeah, he's looking up like.
What the fuck is this?
Are we really doing this right now?
And this guy right here.
Is this real life? Oh,
yeah.
You look ready to me. Lord have mercy. But it's crazy when you see it like this. And
even the
it's
fucking
crazier when you experience it.
Yeah.
And or even but like even as like a family member, even at like so many, but it's crazy to see it like that and be like, does anyone else see this? Is anyone else looking?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on?
Wow,
and,
man.
And like,
wow, this is awful.
Yeah,
that is an awful.
For me, it's important to remember, like, that's what it's all for. So it's like it doesn't it just keeps the fire going, but not in like a, not in a destructive way. You see how it just hasn't stopped. It hasn't ended. It just transferred.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah. And right under everybody's noses. Yeah. By the way, everybody, just so you know, I know we're going all over the place, right? But this is what happens. We are not organized people, right? But just so you know, all that shit about critical race theory that everyone's pissed off about, and even how it affects our younger kids, like we both, Nadine and I both have school age kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like young, like middle school, elementary school. And I'm just gonna say it, I'm okay for my son, because frankly I talked to him about this stuff anyway. I'm okay for my son to know stuff that's factual, like there was actually a transference of slavery and it never ended, right? Like, I think that he should know that. And that's what critical race theory does. It says you have to look at history not through just the lens of the dominant social hierarchy, right? So it's just, so that people can keep this shit going, it's the people in power that say, we're doing the thing that we should do in society, right? We're just like, we're punishing bad people, and yet we're teaching them skills. Look, we can teach Black men how to carry hoes and till the fields. Do you have them pick the fucking copyright too? Are they picking it too?
Oh my God.
Are they picking?
You know that there are farms, like there's like people doing farm work and everything too. Like, so I mean,
Jesus
obviously
Christ, dude.
That's
thousands of Black people were forced into a brutal system that historians have called worse than slavery. By the middle of the 20th century, states abandoned convict leasing. This is now a thing. Those words exist and have meaning. Convict leasing. Due to industrialization and political pressure, and extended slavery through chain gangs, Nadine, you just said it, and prison farms.
Yep.
Folks, when you want extra lettuce on your Big Mac, it's all those Black slaves that are doing it. And I do like extra lettuce on my Big Mac, but that sucks. This legacy continues to influence the criminal justice system today in places like Louisiana State Penitentiary. And let me tell you, folks, if you think Louisiana's bad, why don't you come on down to Florida and see how we treat Black folk here?
Oh my God.
Okay, why don't you come on down? Why don't you come on down, folks? Come on down.
Right on.
We'll show you, right? Named Angola after the provenance of the enslaved people who worked the same land when it was a plantation. It's called Angola because that's a place in Africa where we got the first Black folk from to occupy that space and be slaves. And now there are more Black folk occupying the same place. And folks, it's 2022. God damn it. 80% of Angola's imprisoned men are Black. And its warden compares the grounds to a big plantation in days gone by.
Oh my God. Oh my God, does it really say that?
What the fuck? What are we doing here?
Can I just say how much respect I have for this writer?
Quibbling about bullshit, and this is the stuff that's just happening, folks. It's not. Right. It's not an illusion, and it's not some big conspiracy. Actually, let me take that back. Hey, all of our friends watching who are experienced conspiracy theorists, please look at this incredibly evidence-based conspiracy about how slavery never ended. We just changed its face. We just moved it around and reshuffled it a little bit and just kept it going forever. And folks, if you look, it's not just people who are in those prisons. Okay, now we're going to go a little meta. And yes, maybe we're talking about the metaverse with Mr. Zuckerberg, who may end up being one of the biggest, if not the biggest prison warden in history when he gets billions of people to put on their Oculus Rifts and Quests and enter into the great prison of the metaverse. And just to be there.
Why didn't you do that? Your mind could be a prison enough.
Well, yeah, but this gives you cool pictures and choices, and you can do shit too. It's like dreaming, but when you're awake. But are you going to be awake? I don't know. You're probably just going to numb out, right? It's going to be like an opium sleep.
Right.
So anyway, wardens and plantations. Let's keep going. Let's keep going with our friend. We gotta talk a little bit more about.
Yes. I know we were only 41 minutes in, but we had to take it.
I know. Let's go. 41 seconds. 41
seconds. Sorry.
Occupy a particularly privileged status within the judicial branch. Although federal judges and Supreme Court justices have lifelong terms, in many states, judges must still run for re-election. While elections are supposed to hold local judges accountable to...
Okay, so in our county, I don't know if you got the sample ballot for our upcoming elections, right? See, Nadine knows this about me, guys. You have to get to know this too. I say awful stuff, and I'm going to be canceled a lot, right? But I'm wondering if Nadine got the sample ballot, because I think that where we live, some people may try to not get sample ballots sent to places like where Nadine lives. And folks, we can't be politically correct about that. Nadine and her neighbors are Black folk, and often their voices are silenced in this larger community because the community they live in is a particularly parametered, defined socioeconomic and ethnic and racial space. Like, you people stay over there.
Listen,
am I I don't know, am I getting it wrong?
You got it right on the head, baby. What are you talking about? Like, yes, that's exactly, it's literally like right in this little sweet little cusp, right? That everybody gets to ignore so that things don't get fixed, so that buses don't go back there. So you're literally stuck back there. But then also, when things are voted on to fix any of those things, like, you might get that notice because you can't get there because the bus is gonna be like, it's not gonna go there, and then it also ends before that meeting is over, or so if you get there you'll be stuck. But also, like, when I go to, like, oh, let me vote, and like, all right, oh, actually, but you don't matter. Wait, what? How? Well, where do I, and it's a whole runaround just to even figure out anything. And You know, honestly, it wasn't that many people trying to like go on the bus to come over here and be told, actually, no, you should have stayed home anyways.
So peep this, right? Based on that idea, right? Let's say, okay, folks, we're not claiming that it's real. Let's just make it contemplative. Let's say Black people are disadvantaged. That's not real. That's just fiction, right? So let's say let's pretend. Let's do a thought exercise that says Black people are disadvantaged, right? There are a lot of folk in Nadine's community, and there are people that Nadine has known herself. There are people that I know and have come to know and have been privileged to come to know, that frequent, in terms of their living space, either communities like Nadine's or the county jail. And there are certain judges that send them there. And let's just say that if Black people's votes are suppressed, who is gonna vote, like this video is saying right now, bullshit judges out, but the people who have been adjudicated by those judges, but who are actively discouraged to vote? I wonder why we don't let Black people vote in a lot of different ways.
And then, you know, too, like when you go, if you have a felony, like, well, I mean, now things are, but like for so long.
Yeah, Florida folks, for a long time, felons
couldn't vote.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I just didn't get to the point.
Yeah.
Couldn't vote, like that killed it for me. But yeah.
No, that's all right.
That is not the case now.
Yeah. But still, even if it's just not being able to get out to the voting place, you know, there's all sorts of layers of resistance, right? So let's just keep going, seeing what this guy's saying.
Their constituents, it can often create conflicts of interest, just as it does with politicians. One 2004 case, an Illinois judge won an appointment to the High Court, partially thanks to financial support from a large insurance agency. Suspiciously, the judge later voted to overturn a $1 billion lawsuit against that agency, leading to a federal investigation of the circumstances.
Wait, are you saying
somebody actually investigated him?
Yeah, and that there are favors that are done and judges make decisions based on favors? Is that what that guy was saying? Let's just listen to that a little bit again.
To a federal investigation of the circumstances. As judges are usually unopposed in their rulings, they hold the power to make dishonest...
Okay. Again, folks, we got to take a really good look. Let's take a look around this room.
Yeah.
Right? Let's just take a little journey. Way back over here, looking like a beautiful Black queen, is Lady Justice, holding up the scales of justice.
Almost like she got a fist.
Yeah, she's up here. And she is fucking awesome. But there ain't nothing else in this room supporting her message, all right? Because on the other side of this person here, between these two flags of power, which have a star and an eagle on top of them, right?
No, who else on the eagle?
Is this guy and that guy. And they're looking at the guy taking this picture like, bitch, we wish we could unholster these weapons and gun your ass down for taking this picture, right? That's these two guys over here. And then there's all these people over here, right? There's all these people in the room. Help me, like these, I might need a new prescription on these glasses. It's hard for me to see. Help me find, is there a Black person in this room?
Not a one, sir. Oh, wait, yeah, there is. He's right there in the center.
Oh, in this weird, fucking, horrible, slave dystopian outfit? Where everybody else is wearing beautifully tailored suits?
Right.
And strapped to the fucking nines? This little guy right here. And he's in front of all these people. And Lady Justice is like, where are my allies? We're here, Lady Justice, we're here. And we're trying. But this place is a hard place to break into, folks, because we go in there, Like, either I get over here and like not over there. I don't know where it is in here. I think it's back here. See this like underlady justice? I think this is the stenographer. That may be a witness right there.
Yep.
So that's where I can sit, or Nadine can sit. Or maybe walk up to a podium for the judge to talk to us ourselves. But other than that, we shut the fuck up. And you know why we shut the fuck up? Do you want to rise up and start like causing static when these guys are in the room? Nuh-uh.
Holding their guns?
Yeah, nuh-uh. And that's just, bro, there are only two, like this, where we're at, there are at least 5, I think, right?
Always, at all times.
Yeah.
I've never seen less.
Yeah.
The other ones are probably in the corner somewhere where we can't see.
Right,
The other police,
right. So let's keep going here.
Judgments for financial gain, as in the Kids for Cash scandal. In a 2013 case, a Texas state judge was convicted of receiving more than $250,000 in bribes and kickbacks in exchange for favorable rulings. Some judgments were even sold for as little as $300 apiece.
Jesus.
Judges with tenure and lifelong terms also pose a problem because they are essentially incontrovertible. Alabama Supreme Court Justice Roy Moore has more than once defied popular higher court rulings because of his own religious bias. Most recently, he ordered state officials to refuse marriage licenses to gay couples. Few penalties have been levied against Moore for his actions, though. In 2015, the Southern Poverty Law Center officially filed an ethical complaint. The American judicial system plays one of the most important regulatory roles in society. While an overwhelming majority of judges play by the rules, the lack of oversight and accountability leave the door wide open for corruption. Although a few government
lack of oversight and accountability. That's ultimately what we're talking about here.
And that's why our judge is pissed. That's why our judge is pissed, because she is being challenged, and in that narcissist thing about superiority, inferiority, she's being challenged from an inferior position. Like, she considers where we stand in an inferior position. We're like, but hey, or like Stewie Griffin, like mama, mommy, like it's that. And yeah, I know it's annoying. Folks, we can be annoying, but we're professional. And we are articulate, and we are eloquent, and we are trained, and we are evidence-based, and we are not trying to beat someone else or win our position. We are trying to co-constructively, collaboratively, and collectively change shit that doesn't work for a lot of people, and they are bleeding. They're bleeding out on the streets, and we just walk by as if it's an inconvenience. And there's a lot of factors there, and it ain't simple, and it's really complicated, and it's really difficult, but we got to talk about it, because this shit is not, this is just like 2 or 3 things that they're like, oh, holy shit, we caught people. You know, I'm gonna say it, and I know this is the part, this is why people don't like me, right? Like, it's that idea of like, well, who says that the really rich plaintiff in this case, the one who has the company and the power and the money and the friends, and who's at one point was actually asked by our judge, Mr. So-and-so, what do you think would be an appropriate time frame in sentencing the client, or our client, but the defendant, right?
Mm-hmm.
She asked that guy,
right, how
do you think we should punish her? And he said, well, Your Honor, I feel that, well, a fair affair. I mean, she really should deserve
kind of
this.
the calmness of
I'm
my
going
heart.
to be forgiving. An affair thing should only be 10 years rather than the 20. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is that? How is that happening? How and why can that not be challenged? It's ridiculous.
That is such a messed up feeling too. Like and this is, pardon me, because this is like, you know, not the same scale at all, but the same signature was there. I remember being a particular day, you know, I was working at a place and I missed like a super important meeting. It was like supposed to be like some sort of, you know, retreat or something, and like we're having some sort of important meeting. I missed it for not because, you know, I just don't want to go or anything, for like, you know, some serious stuff happened and was stuck. Like I had my kids, I had nothing else to do but to figure out how to make sure it didn't happen tomorrow. And I spent all day and I put, you know, that time and effort into it and like making sure that, okay, tomorrow this will not happen. And I showed up the next day and it was basically like I had to be in the hot seat, and where, you know, like almost like the judge, like your employer, the person that signs your checks is like the judge in that area, you know, and was just like, well, how, looking around at the crowd of my of my coworkers, and like, how can we, you know, how should we hold this person accountable? Like basically, how do we punish this person? You know, I had to sit there and listen to that and like know what I had already been through. And that's the same thing in court, with no, you know, real understanding of what a person, how they have lived their life, what has happened, you know, what amends they did try to make already, or you know, I won't even argue that thing. You just don't know what happened before they came to your face. And then, you know, just to like really, you know, go out of your way to like be inconsiderate and like, you know what? We don't even have space to hear that here. Instead, let's go over to this person who was like irrelevant to that and ask them, what should we do? Let's just all take a poll on like what we should do. Yeah. So yeah, that's it's a horrible place to be. It definitely is. And like, especially when your life is on the line or your livelihood is on the line.
Folks, you're seeing the creative process in play. This is our community Dharma exchange, you know, episode list that we're working on. And, you know, Hope brought up a really strong point, and it was about how the, yeah, I realized I just slipped there. Nadine's nickname is Hope. So sometimes I'll call her Hope, sometimes I'll call her Nadine. So suck it up, live with it. There's bigger problems, bigger fish to fry, folks, bigger fish to fry. So restoration versus punishment. There's this whole thing about restorative justice, right? There's friends, colleagues. We're going to have some folks that'll come on here and talk about it as well, right? It's going to be really cool because there's a lot of benefit that can come out of taking a restorative view on justice rather than a punishment view. Just like Nadine was talking about at her workplace, it wasn't even like knowing, like I'll say some things about this workplace that she was working at, and it is the idea that they said that they believe in taking individuals, and this was what was actually done, right? Like Nadine, from some context of being disadvantaged and lacking access to the same education, healthcare, housing, transportation, food insecurity issues, all of that, right? What are those, Suraj? Some of us on this, in our audience, may not know what any of those things are in terms of problems, but those things exist for a lot of people. And this workplace that employed Nadine took it upon itself to declare in community that it is important that we support individuals like this and we build them up. So when Nadine has a problem getting there, and then she goes in and she's in trouble with her bosses, right? Because she didn't come and she had to last minute, whatever the case is. A lot of you may say, well, fuck that, man. You gotta suck it up. You gotta deal. You gotta show up when you say you're gonna show up. You gotta do what you're gonna do. Yes, you are right. Except there is the issue of being disadvantaged systemically, right? Folks, for Nadine showing up for something, even being able to access the resources to be a part of this production that we're doing, right, is an incredibly difficult journey to get to that particular place. And whether it's showing up there or it's coming to this place and being able to do this work, that is not the same as it is for me, right? If I don't show up, I'm not facing the challenges. I'm facing other challenges. There's other challenges that, by the way, Nadine also faces. Like, there are times I may not show up because I'm struggling with depression. And that's also stigmatized. People don't want to fucking hear about that. But that's a very real thing, right? So there's socioeconomic disadvantages, there's mental health disadvantages, there's other health disadvantages, there's education disadvantages, such as when Nadine doesn't pick up as quick on making like Excel data sheets. That's because you guys, you don't necessarily think about how much, even if you don't know Excel, Microsoft Excel is a program, a software, like you don't know how much you've actually just been around it. You know, it's just there and every computer you get, and the fact that you have computers that you carry around with you. Like, in Nadine's position, she didn't have any of that. So just the expectation of, why aren't you getting it? You know, it's, you know, like, fucking wake up. Like, there's more complicated issues at play. Just fucking wake up. It's fucking annoying that you don't. And the real privilege is that you get to be a judgmental fucking twat, and we have to deal with it. That's the real. We have to suck it up. Yeah, we have to suck it up
and pick ourselves up by our bootstraps.
Yeah, always by our fucking bootstraps. Yeah.
We're going in, ain't we?
Yeah. So this is by Transparency International, the Global Coalition Against Corruption. Thank God there's something like that. My goodness. Doesn't it make you feel good? That sounds like the fucking Justice League. Yeah. Superman and Wonder Woman and Batman on the fucking like lead counsel for that thing.
Right. That's awesome.
The board of governance.
That's awesome. Let's see it. We gotta come up with some superheroes. Like you've said, we've talked about like gatekeepers, and when we talked about it in reverse and not like a negative way, but still the same like concept, I immediately thought those were the keepers of the realm. Right. To me, and like that's very much like that speaks to me.
I like that. I like that. I like that. Yeah, that might actually jive with like. So this is why I brought this thing up, right? So this report that they did, judicial corruption. There's this section right here, right, which I really like: judicial independence and accountability, right? Judicial anti-corruption reformers must find the correct balance between demanding accountability of judicial actors, like our judge and our defense attorney, and protecting their independence. That's important because I don't know about you, Nadine. I don't want to be a judge. My God, that job, that's like every day, right? Like that's what they have to do.
No.
It's almost like I can understand why she's so pissed, and why she's so frustrated. It's awful.
You want me to have human emotion in this place? No.
Yeah.
You know what it takes for me to turn that on?
Yeah. Judicial independence should be safeguarded so that political actors and other powerful interests cannot influence judicial decision making. Judicial independence requires not just independence in the constitutional sense, that is, the separation of powers between the three branches of government, executive, legislature, and judiciary. So that's basically like the city or county council, or the mayor, or the police chief. They shouldn't be, or even like business interests, which are very much intertwined through like chambers of commerce, right? Chambers of commerce, it's not a thing. It's not an elected position. It's just people. There's just business leaders who have a lot of money. They came together and they're like, we're going to start making decisions about stuff. And we're like, huh? Like, what do you mean? Where? Why? Who are you? We're the chamber. Like, what? Who the fuck said that? Right? So it's so that those people don't influence our judge. But that may be happening in this case, right? We can see that. Like our plaintiff in this case, powerful dude, right? Powerful dude. Versus little old our client. But also the personal independence of judges so that they are free to decide cases based on the application of the rule of law. I would add to that, and community-based evidence and perception. Like you can't take the person that you're judging out of the community context they come from, right? But if they take that into consideration, they start seeing disproportionately that a lot of people that are appearing before them are coming from Linton Oaks and Sugarfoot. And that means something. Right. And they got to start thinking about that. It's too much work. You know, like, I've got a full docket. However, judges and the courts deliver a service to society, justice, and like other service providers, service provider? Do you think our judge would be okay being called a service provider?
Heck no. I think she'd be better if you called her Her Majesty. Like, no.
They should be accountable for their decisions and actions. Oh, shit. What's up, Transparency International? You coming hard with this kind of stuff, right? So anyway, we just want to point that out because there has to be accountability, but that accountability can't be decided from within the closed system in which people are being held accountable, right? Like,
oh my
it
gosh.
has to be from outside, like us, those reeking masses. The reeking masses. Yeah, we think about shit. We are affected by shit that you do. So anyway, no justice, no peace, man. And when we say no peace, we do say revolution. But when we say revolution, we say it with love.